When Nigerians talk about their founding fathers, they usually refer to Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Sir Ahmadu Bello, and Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Whereas modern Nigeria existed before these four were born. In fact, as of the time the Southern and Northern Protectorates of Nigeria were amalgamated in 1914 to become the British colony of Nigeria, Azikiwe was 9 years old, Awolowo and Bello were 4 years old, while Balewa was merely an infant at 1 year old. So, why were these men referred to as founding fathers of Nigeria? Are they really founding fathers in the first place? But before we look into that, let us take a look at how modern Nigeria was formed. The first step to the formation of modern Nigeria started at Windsor Castle on November 23, 1851, when Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther convinced Queen Victoria and her husband, Prince Albert, that Lagos must be bombarded and seized. But why did Crowther convince the Queen to bombard Lagos? In 1821, at the break of the morning, Ajayi, together with his mother and sister, was captured by Fulani slave raiders when they attacked his village of Oshogun, 140 kilometers away from the Lagos coast. Ajayi was later separated from his family and exchanged for a horse. A year later, Ajayi fell sick and attempted suicide when he heard that his new owner planned to reap huge profits out of him by taking him southwestward to Little Popo, a flourishing high-paying Portuguese slave market that was a major outlet for slaves from the Oyo Empire. Little Popo is now known as Aneho in present-day Togo. Ajayi's owner feared that the little boy's suicide bid may succeed before the next slave auction, so she quickly exchanged him for a bottle of English wine and some tobacco leaves. The Ijebu man who bought him took him southeastward to Lagos and sold him to the Portuguese slave ship Esperanza Feliz, meaning free spirit. He lost hope and waited for death as the ship sailed towards America. However, on April 7, 1822, the HMS Myrmidon, captained by Sir Henry Leake of the Royal Navy's anti-slavery squadron, engaged the Portuguese slave vessel in a gunfight. The 13-year-old Ajayi and some other slaves were rescued and taken to the British settlement in Freetown, now the capital of Sierra Leone. The British started the policy of relocating slaves to Freetown because earlier on, when the slaves were handed over to Oba Adele, Eshilokun, Gezo, or any other monarchies along the coast of the Bight of Benin, they were resold into slavery once the British sailors got back to their ships. The Church Missionary Society (CMS), managing the settlement in Freetown, taught Ajayi how to read and write, enrolled him at the Forabe College, and sent him to England to study. Ajayi spoke Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and many West African languages. Being a fascinating personality, a highly educated black man, an ex-slave, and an established writer, Ajayi's public lectures attracted much attendance all over Britain. He later bagged an honorary doctorate degree at Oxford University. In Canterbury Cathedral on June 29, 1864, when Ajayi, now Samuel Ajayi Crowther, became the first black bishop ordained into the Anglican Church, Sir Henry Leake, the captain of the ship that rescued him from slavery in 1822, came over to witness the event. Lady Weeks, who taught him the English alphabet, was also there. It was a tearful reunion. The highest honor one can get as a visitor in 19th century England was to be asked to meet the Queen. On November 18, 1851, Crowther, accompanied by Lord Russell, was invited to the Windsor Castle, where he met Prince Albert and his wife, Queen Victoria. Ajayi narrated how he was enslaved, the horrors, and the general situation of slavery in Lagos as of 1851. Queen Victoria then asked about what she could do about the slavery situation in Lagos, to which Ajayi Crowther responded by saying, "Seize Lagos, by fire, by force." Of all the kings of Lagos since Ado and Ashipa, Akinsemoyin, Ologunkutere, Eshinlokun, Akitoye, and Kosoko were the biggest slave traders, sending their fellow Africans to the Americas more than any other monarch. By 1840, the population of Lagos had swollen dramatically, and half of them were either domestic slaves or slaves being ready for exportation. The females were usually domestic slaves, while the males were processed for export. That was why Crowther was separated from his mother and sisters and transferred to a different market. The revenue from the slave trade streamed in steadily. The 25 guns lining Lagos Island to the King's Palace were purchased with slaves' money. Velvet clothes, royal umbrellas, hats, and stylish robes worn by the Obas and chiefs to command respect and admiration amongst their people were bought with slaves' money. In fact, Oba Kosoko did what other slave traders never did. He bought back slaves already established in Bahia, Brazil, because he needed their carpentry, masonry, and coopering skills to build Brazilian-type houses and produce European items in Lagos. On the HMS Bloodhound, the leading ship of the Navy that was sent to bombard Lagos was Captain Labulo Davies. Davies was born on August 14, 1828, to former Yoruba slaves whom the British had rescued and resettled in Freetown, Sierra Leone. His father was from Abeokuta, while his mother was from Ogumosho. His parents refused to accept that Africans should be left to their traditions and ways of life after what they had done to them. Their son joined the Royal Navy as a sea cadet in 1849 and later, when he retired, began his own shipping line. Being trustworthy, he became a point of contact for many European trading companies in West Africa. Captain Davies grew rich. For 30 years, Captain Labulo Davies was the richest man on all the coast of West Africa. At a time when millions of his fellow Africans had never seen a ship before, and those that had seen them thought ships belonged to the white man, Davies owned merchant ships plying the Lokoja Lagos Freetown to Plymouth, Portsmouth, Brighton, and Liverpool routes. He also funded the initiative of Thomas Babington Macaulay to establish the first secondary school in Nigeria, the CMS Grammar School. Babington Macaulay was the son-in-law of Samuel Ajayi Crowther and the father of Herbert Macaulay. He is also an ancestor of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Stella Ameyo Adadevo, the doctor who detected the 2014 Ebola plague in Nigeria. In no time, the news reached Queen Victoria at Buckingham Palace on the achievements of Davies and how he was far becoming an influential man in West Africa. The Queen then convinced her goddaughter, Aina Sarah Forbes Bonetta, to marry Captain Labulo Davies. The captain was 33, while Aina was 17. But how did Aina get to become Queen Victoria's goddaughter? With the collapse of the Oyo Empire in the early 19th century, many vassal kingdoms broke away from the empire. One of them was the Kingdom of Dahomey. The kingdom rose rapidly to become an important military power, subduing neighboring towns and villages in West Africa. In their conquests, men, women, and children were taken as slaves, some to be sold and others to be killed for religious practices. As a result, Port Novo, Ouidah, and Popo became important slave trading ports for Dahomey. However, when the British actively started their anti-slavery campaign in the middle of the 19th century, they sent Captain Frederick Forbes to meet and persuade Gezo, the king of Dahomey, to stop his slavery business. Forbes encouraged Gezo to trade agricultural products like cotton, palm kernel, and the likes as a key source of income. This was around the year 1849. At the meeting, some slaves were about to be executed for religious rituals. One of them was Aina, a 7-year-old girl whose parents had been killed a year before in 1848 by Gezo's army when they invaded their village Okeodon in Egbado and took her as a slave. Forbes did everything in his power to persuade Gezo to release the little girl to him, but the adamant king refused. However, when Forbes called Gezo the king of the blacks and that Aina should be a present to the queen of the whites, Gezo seemed interested. Of course, Gezo was not the king of the blacks, neither was Victoria the queen of the whites. But he was flattered enough to be equaled to the Queen of England and had hoped this would attract him more respect and more power, especially from his superiors, Aláàfin Abiodun Atiba of Oyo and Oba Osenwende and Adolu of Benin. Thus, Gezo released Aina to Commander Forbes, who took her to England. On November 9, 1850, Aina arrived at Windsor Castle where she met the Queen, who never knew Forbes nor asked him to bring back a black girl. However, Queen Victoria adopted Aina and sent her for royal training. Not only did Aina impress the Queen with her charm, intelligence, and friendliness, she also impressed the whole of Britain. Aina spoke English with a royal accent, and several photographers and artists came to document her. Even ambassadors who came to visit the palace saw Princess Aina with the royal family and wrote about her. Aina's presence and actions in Buckingham showed that black people were not inferior after all. Since the Queen arranged the marriages of all her 6 children, she arranged Aina's marriage too to Captain Davies, supremely confident she was in good hands. The wedding was held at St. Nicholas Church, Brighton, on August 14, 1862. The Queen paid for the elaborate ceremony, which was the talk of the country. And when they both settled in Lagos, they continued the course of civilization, opening schools, educating the people, and discouraging slavery. Aina Davies was in regular correspondence with the Queen, who in turn sent gifts to her and invited her when there were family functions in London. As a matter of fact, Aina continued to enjoy such a close relationship with Queen Victoria that she and Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther were the only Lagos indigenes the British Royal Navy had standing orders to evacuate in the event of an uprising in Lagos. Her first daughter, Victoria Matilda Davies, was named after Queen Victoria, who was also her godmother. Apart from Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther and Captain Labulo Davies, another of Nigeria's founding fathers was Olayinka Herbert Macaulay, who has been referred to as the father of Nigerian nationalism. Although Macaulay was a critic of the British colonial government, he never called for them to leave Nigeria. As a matter of fact, Macaulay swore allegiance to the British Crown even to his last breath on May 7, 1946. Some notable people who helped shape the history of modern Nigeria include Dr. Henry Carr, the first African Inspector of Education and later the first African resident of the Lagos Colony; John Otoba Payne, the first African Registrar of Lagos Supreme Court in 1877, who prepared the Indigenous Handbook for white judges to use. Others were Dr. G.K. Randall, Dr. C.C. Adeniyi Jones, Dr. J.A. Colcrick, Candido Darocha, Adeyemo Alakija, and Kitoye Ajasa. So, why were Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and Ahmadu Bello, referred to as Nigeria's founding fathers. Nnamdi Azikiwe entered the national limelight when on November 22, 1937, he published the first edition of his popular newspaper, the West African Pilot. However, the first time Azikiwe, Awolowo, and Bello met together was on Friday, June 19, 1953. Anthony Enahoro's motion for independence and the consequent resignation of all federal ministers of the Action Group Party caused a constitutional crisis in Nigeria. Thereafter, Oliver Lyttelton, the Secretary of State for Colonies, tried to save the country's state of affairs by inviting the main actors to a constitutional conference in London, which led to the Lyttelton Constitution in 1954. Azikiwe and Awolowo refused the terms and conditions of this constitution, but Bello was fine with them. However, the Governor General of Nigeria, John Macpherson, invited Azikiwe, Awolowo, and Bello together in his office to jointly fashion new terms and conditions. After the meeting ended at 10 minutes past 10 in the evening, Macpherson presented the three politicians to the media. The next day, the Daily Times dubbed them the Big Three. Since then, the appellation that they were Nigeria's founding fathers stuck, because their tribes and their parties were the largest, and it also offered an inclusive impression that all the regions had a say in the formation of Nigeria. This is far from the truth. They were not the founding fathers of Nigeria. There are more stories like this to talk about, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have turned on notifications to receive new videos as they drop. You can check out our next video to know more about how Britain bought Nigeria for 53 billion naira in 1900.